All right, so just wanted to work through some of these solutions for these trig identities as you start to work through more today. I think just seeing the process and hearing the process could be helpful. I'm hoping that you at least give these an attempt before you watch the solutions, just so that you can see what to do after you get stuck. All right, so, and I'm betting that a lot of you do get stuck doing some of these. All right, so I'm going to do 4 problems, 23, 27, 41, and 49. So for 23, we're starting off with cosine times tangent plus, sorry, that's a plus there, cotangent. And we want to end up with cosecant. So the first thing we should do is put anything we can in terms of sine and cosine. So here we would have cosine of theta, and tangent is sine of theta over cosine. And then I have cotangent is the reciprocal of that, so I have cosine theta over sine theta. Now, when I have a fraction or a sum of 2 fractions, most likely I'm going to need to get a common denominator. So in my common denominator, I will have a factor of cosine and of sine. Cosine theta, sine theta. I don't want to forget about this cosine theta over here. But just remembering, this fraction had a factor of cosine, but it doesn't have a factor of sine. So I need to multiply the top by sine of theta, because I multiplied the denominator by sine of theta. And in this fraction, I have a sine, but I don't have a cosine. So I need a cosine theta here. So in the parentheses, I'm going to have sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta. And one thing I do know is sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. All right. And another thing I know is I have a cosine here and a cosine here that can be canceled, a factor on top and a factor on bottom. So all of this simplifies to be, this is 1 on top, so I have 1 over sine of theta. And 1 over sine of theta is cosecant of theta, which is what I wanted here. All right, so there is 1. The next one, number 27. And I'm just picking random ones that seem to have some different methods that are needed, or different identities that need to be used. So I have secant of theta minus 1 and secant of theta plus 1 equals tangent squared of theta. All right, so I'm going to take what's on the left and I am going to magically work this and end up what I have on the right. So when I see 2 factors like this, I want to get rid of the parentheses, so I'm going to FOIL these, and these are the difference of squares. They're going to end up with a difference of squares. So this is going to be secant squared of theta, and then plus secant minus secant will cancel out, and this will be minus 1 equals tangent squared of theta. And if we remember way back on our front page of our notes, and I'm trying to see if I have that. I don't have mine available, but one of the identities is that secant squared minus 1 is tangent squared. So this is an identity, and this is tangent squared. And tangent squared of theta equals tangent squared of theta. So that was just a nice quick one here. Okay, multiply the two factors together and then look for the identity. All right, next one, number 41. All right, so I have 1 whole minus cosine squared of theta over 1 plus sine of theta equals sine of theta. So I want to do magic with this side to get it to look like this side. All right, so here we have two terms. One of them is a ratio. So I think what we might do is combine these so that we have a common denominator, and this is going to be 1 plus sine theta for our common denominator. And to get this as a ratio, 1 plus sine theta, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 1 plus sine theta. Okay, so here I have 1 plus sine theta minus cosine squared of theta, cosine squared of theta over 1 plus sine theta. All right, so now I have, let's see, what do I have here? I know that cosine squared of theta, let's try and get this all in terms of sine because I don't want anything left with cosine. I know cosine squared of theta is 1 minus sine squared of theta, and that just comes from sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared. So here I'm going to have 1 plus sine of theta minus cosine of theta, which we're going to write as 1 minus sine squared of theta. And this is still as a fraction with 1 plus sine of theta on bottom. All right, so if I get rid of my parentheses, I'm going to subtract 1 and I'm going to subtract sine squared of theta. So I'm going to distribute this negative. So I have 1 minus 1, those are going to cancel. And then I have sine of theta minus a negative sine squared of theta. Minus negative is going to be a positive. Sine squared of theta all over 1 plus sine of theta. Now I see that on the top I have a factor of sine of theta. So I'm going to pull out that sine of theta. And on the top I will multiply that by 1 plus sine of theta over my denominator, which is also 1 plus sine of theta. So I can cancel all of this with all of this, and I'm left with sine of theta. which is what I needed there. All right, number 49. Here we have some more fractions. This time we're using V instead of theta. So I have 1 minus sine V over cosine V plus cosine V over 1 minus sine V equals 2 secant of V. All right, so what we learned before, if I have two fractions, let's try and get a common denominator and combine our numerators. So my common denominator would be a cosine V and a 1 minus sine V. So here I've already got my cosine of V, so I need to multiply the top by 1 minus sine V. And over here, I need to multiply the top by cosine of V. So here I'm multiplying, I have 1 times 1 is 1, and then I have minus sine V times another minus sine V, which is minus 2 sine V, and then a plus sine squared of V. Okay, so that's these factors multiplied together. And over here, I'm going to have cosine squared of V. So I have plus cosine squared of V. All right, so let's see what I have here. I see a Pythagorean identity with sine squared plus cosine squared, and we know that that should be 1. All right, so if I just combine this, here I have 1, and this is a plus 1, so that would be 2 minus 2 sine V over cosine V and 1 minus sine V. Now I see I have a factor of a 2 that I can bring out a 2, so bring that 2 out, and I have a 1 minus sine V. We're looking to see that I might be able to cancel something here. And I can cancel the 1 minus sine V's, and that's leaving us with 2 over cosine of V, which is the same thing as 2 times 1 over cosine V, and cosine 1 over cosine is secant. So this is secant of V, and that gives us 2 times secant of V, which is what we wanted up on top. All right, so just working through some of the process, working with fractions sometimes is difficult, but just getting the common denominator or multiplying factors if you have those. But I want you to keep trying with some of these, and we will check some more in class next time.